All right, I heard this really interesting fact this morning, and I think it just goes to show how much we've lost the plot over many years with many different things. And I'm going to relate this to fitness, so stick with me. But did you know that the phrase or the term goodbye actually is an evolution of the phrase God be with ye, or in modern day, God be with you? In the end of the 14th century, in post-medieval England, this is just a common phrase that people would say to each other as they were departing. But over time, secular society shortened the phrase, and now we say goodbye instead of God be with you. This has happened with so many different things over the years. People lose the plot, they lose the essence of why we say things, why we do things, and what actually matters. And as I sit here in front of this waterfall right here, beautiful sight, I'm out here getting some sunlight and the fresh air. Staring at this for like 20 minutes is 1,000 times more effective than any cortisol lowering supplement that you could take, any ice bath that you could take, any sauna session. Going out into the wilderness and being a human, being primal in a sense, is far more, there's far more leverage in something like that than all these gimmicks that the fitness industry tries to sell to you, tries to jam down your throat with all sorts of different types of marketing. Even the top gurus, these people that we're supposed to look up to. They get into affiliate marketing and finally their account ends up being like an infomercial. I'm guilty of this too. I show products on my page, but it's also stuff that I use. On the supplement conversation, I always stick to stuff that has been around for a long time. Things like shilajit, things like pine pollen, these things from traditional Chinese medicine or stuff back in the day that the Egyptians used to use. And this just goes to my sort of philosophy, which is doing the things that have always worked in the right way. And that, a good phrase to explain this is that the future of health is behind us. The future of health is ancient, yet with a modern edge. You don't need to be living in a hut, somewhere in the wilderness with no clothes, wearing a loincloth and a spear, killing all your food and stuff. Though that would be very potent. You still got modern society that you're gonna indulge in. Modern luxuries, modern foods, modern activities, all sorts of different stuff that we want to involve ourselves in because this is, products of our time, and that's completely fine. But as far as your health goes, you don't want to stray too far away from the river or the stream, right? Now, a good thing to think about would be, hey, what are things that I have in my daily routine that are just not something that a human should have ever known about? I was talking to one of my fitness clients about this recently. You were never meant to know what your hemoglobin was. You were never meant to know what your testosterone level was. Even though these things are very important, and it's nice to take a look at it every now and again so you can spot any glaring opportunities for adjustment and whatnot. I'm still into biohacking, but if you're too focused on the metrics, you're too focused on the specifics, all these minute details, you lose the plot. You get too fixated on these things that don't even matter. You're majoring in the minor instead of just living your life. It's almost as if when you're learning how to drive. I was talking to somebody who's a good friend of mine, their younger sister just got their permit. Sometimes when you're first driving, it can be really common to overcorrect and want to just take control of the wheel and be really herky-jerky with it. Sometimes you just gotta let it ride. Sometimes you gotta just let things flow. It's kind of like this stream right here, this waterfall. You don't wanna try to push the river, push the stream. You wanna tap into the regular flow, the natural flow of things and get out of your own way. Bodybuilding, all these hyperactive, super stressful and forceful ways of fitness, these are not how you want to live your life. Though they are cool, and there is a time to use brute force for different stuff, you want to basically just settle into the power, your God-given energy that you have flowing through you. Now, without getting all too woo-woo, there's something to be said about getting too stressed out over these details, as I said earlier. I've been bringing up this example a lot. guy is out to dinner with his friends and family who he hasn't seen in a very long time. He's too preoccupied about the menu and the ingredients and whether or not they cook with seed oils to enjoy the magic that is around him, the love that is around him. He's losing the plot again and again. I'll say this. I would say that guy, even though he is, very healthy by his standards, and he's not, having any of these modern day poisons, I still do agree that seed oils are not good. Polyunsaturated fats create oxidative stress in your body and lead to inflammation. So I'm totally on board with no seed oils, and ideally you are not eating those on a regular basis. You want to definitely be really discriminatory over anything that you're ingesting super consistently, but in a time where you are able to eat food that you will not eat when you're at home, right? You have a once in a lifetime opportunity to enjoy this meal. Are you not going to eat it because of one of the ingredients or whatever? Back to my example about that guy that's all preoccupied about the ingredients, I would say that guy, who's really just suffering from something called orthorexia, it's a phobia over eating food that is not clean. Anyway, sounds like a great phobia to have, and it's one of the better ones to have, I guess. But I would argue that guy is more unhealthy than the guy who is sitting down at a table with his family, eating his wife's home-cooked meal that was made with love, even though there might be some processed ingredients in there, right? There might be some seed oils, there might be some processed starches or processed sugar or whatever. But the fact that he's not even focusing on that means that his cortisol is staying in check, right? He's eating comfort food in a way, but he's comforted by the people around him, the essence that is around him, his family, that God energy, as I'll continue to say. And this does have a scientific backing too. If you want to get all sciencey, if you want to get all focused on the sort of scientific explanation that's going on underneath the surface, look up what the vagal tone is. So your brain connects to your stomach by your vagus nerve, and your vagus nerve has certain tones that will decide how the body operates. So if you are in a very good state, you're happy, you're focused on your family around you, you're cracking jokes, making fun of each other, maybe you're talking shit about other people. I don't know, you guys bond however you want to, however it works for you. You're having a great time. That produces what's called a good vagal tone, a high vibe, so to speak. Things that are associated with a high vagal tone are good metabolism, low cortisol, low stress, just good energy, right? Good mental focus and mental acuity. Things that are associated with a low vagal tone, stress, anxiety. Like say that you were at a family dinner or a dinner where somebody got in a big argument. People are really stressed out and everybody's like really sketched out because of this tenacity and this this polarity that's going on at the table. Somebody saying something that was super brutal and nobody else wanted to hear. Whatever it might have been, that would create what's called a low vagal tone, And what is associated with a low vagal tone is going to be stuff like indigestion, high stress. You will literally digest the same food differently based off the vibe that is going on at the specific table, depending on who the people are with you. And this just goes to show, as I said earlier, you want to be really discriminatory over anything that you consume regularly. That doesn't have to be just through your mouth. It could be through your mind, through your ears, the stuff that you see. This is why watching terrible movies or listening to sad music or watching destructive types of content online, you could probably guess what I'm talking about. Recently I talked about how Sydney Sweeney is like dressed up as a baby in the new Euphoria season or whatever. That's stuff that's going to start to breed pedophiles. Stuff like that is stuff that you want to steer clear of because it screws with your mind and makes you a less effective person, but also just drains you of your energy, drains you of your essence, your God energy, right? I always come back to that, God energy. What is that? At the end of the day, it's just truth. And it's just tapping into, again, the things that have always worked, the things that have always been, these ancient wisdoms that everybody understands yet might not be able to articulate. And this sort of stuff is what we should all want to come back to. I noticed in myself 4 years ago when I got into this anabolic priming lifestyle, this anabolic living scenario that I follow today. Once I started getting further away from everything that modern fitness talks about, everything started working better. My body started working better. I started looking better. It started functioning at a higher level. I started feeling better. I stopped thinking about all the details, and I started enjoying the benefits of a high testosterone lifestyle, an anabolic lifestyle, right? Just better mood, better mental clarity, higher energy, more jacked and shredded than I've ever been, gaining muscle, burning fat at the same time. The list goes on. And a lot of fruitful relationships came of that, a lot of fruitful opportunities, and a lot of great experiences came from that I probably would not have been able to enjoy if I was so focused on like bodybuilding or, you know, doing my cardio every single week, however many times a week, or sticking to my macros, all these soul-sucking activities that the bodybuilders subscribe to. And I honestly know I really rag on bodybuilders and whatnot, but I say this because I used to be in that mode. I used to always be focused on the metrics, the macros, the calories. I would get super stressed at the end of the day because I realized I was out of food and I couldn't eat any of the food that my friends had brought for me or my family had, you know, whipped out after dinner for dessert. If I go out to dinner now, if I go out to eat with friends, a girl, family, whoever, you can't stop me from getting some cheesecake. You can't stop me from getting some affogato. My favorite meal when I go out is oysters for appetizers, anabolic, ribeye with fries for the dinner, and then lastly, some ice cream with some espresso or a nice little piece of cheesecake, followed by cigars and another espresso at the cigar lounge if I'm feeling fresh, if I'm feeling, you know, funky, if I'm feeling frisky. But all that stuff is what keeps me thriving. The guy who's a bodybuilder who's focused on all the inputs, he's trying to overcorrect the wheel. He's trying to push the stream, push the river. I'm just letting it ride. I'm just letting it flow. And thus, I get more benefits and experience life at a different degree than somebody who's just trying to jam a you know, square peg in a round hole. Just trying to force results instead of relaxing into power. Forget force, proceed with power. And, you know, don't forget what has always worked. That's kind of what the essence of anabolic priming is. It's not stuff that's anything new. It's stuff that has been around forever. Think about stuff that, you know, Genghis Khan used to do. Think about stuff that the Egyptians used to do. Traditional Chinese medicine. You know, eat biblically. That's not a bad idea either. Like I always talk about that Playboy potion, pomegranate juice, apple cider vinegar, creatine, and pine pollen. All that stuff, you know, it's been around for a long time. Maybe creatine, it's a little bit more synthetic, so to speak, but that comes from red meat, which is in the Bible. But anyway, pomegranate juice is the main ingredient in that cocktail that actually produces high testosterone, you know, reduces arterial plaque in your arteries and stuff, promoting better blood flow. Better blood flow makes everything work better because you can shuttle nutrients to different parts of the body. And, you know, pomegranates are in the Bible, right? Pine pollen, that's something from traditional Chinese medicine. It's all in throughout my diet. But with that said, even though I do focus heavily on all these biohacking principles and what I can get out of all these ancient foods, I don't want to get fixated on that stuff. I'm not trying to think about what my free test is when I'm out and about with friends, when I'm out on the town with friends that I haven't seen in months, when I'm at you know, a completely new state or a new experience or in a new environment which I've never been at before. I don't want to be so focused on whether or not I got a good pump, or if my, you know, my face is lean enough, or if I have water retention, or any of this like looks maxing crap. End all be all looks maxing tip: develop a really solid state of hormonal health, and everything else will fall into place so long as you're doing the basics. There's an account called Aesthetic Primal, which really taps into this. I love his stuff. But yeah, man, don't forget what really matters. Stop focusing on the metrics, the details. Stop focusing on all these things that mainstream fitness wants you to focus on so you can get stressed about whether or not your plan is really working and you just want to rely more and more on their products and more on what they have to sell you, and you just stay in that buying cycle forever, you're a lifelong client, like that's what they're after. All the stuff that you truly need is right here in front of you. It's always been here, it's what's been always used, and it's what's going to remain working from here on out into the future and beyond, wherever life takes you. So again, don't forget what really works, what truly matters. God be with you.